And we are live at an odd time, but that's okay
Yeah.
because our guest comes from an odd place, at least for us North Americans. And she got a very unfortunate SPFNO, but that's okay because she's on our show now. Welcome to Bald&Balding in your questionable, decision-making skills of coming here. But welcome.
Thanks for having me. I've been on Beard of Darkness, so now I can add this to another hair-related booktube channel.
Nice.
But you started at the top then with the Beard of Darkness, and now you're only it's all falling down. But that's
I'm
all right.
adding it to my collection.
So, and there's our first person in the chat. Timothy's
Timothy. Timothy is omnipresent. He's aware of all of the different social circles in the writing community.
It's crazy how some people are able to do that. Mike, you didn't. I don't think you said where Co was actually calling in from.
I believe it's a big reveal.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm in Cape Town, South Africa. So not in the city center, but a little bit out of the way.
How far is Cape Town from Pretoria? Because I've actually been to Pretoria.
Oh, I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head, but I know it would take a full day's driving, maybe a day and a half to drive from here to there.
All right. I didn't know it was that far.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I like about your answer? Is it like America? Like, it's a long drive. Where if you talk to a European, it's like, it's a long drive. It's 15 minutes.
Well, this is 1,000 miles, Mike.
Yeah.
It's a proper long drive.
It's a little bit smaller than North America, but still quite a bit bigger than the UK.
Yeah, well, not many people want to drive across the whole US, I don't think.
No, I can imagine. It's like a continent, really.
Yeah. So anyway, we should talk about your book before we go off on tangents, because we do that a lot.
I do that too.
So tell us about your book. And I read the blurb and then some of the reviews, and it is just wild. And I cannot wait to pick it up now. So tell us about it.
Okay, well, Far Removed is book 1 in the Apodeca duology. And I kind of call it speculative fiction because that seems like a nice umbrella term for science fiction, horror, and fantasy. And I can't seem to decide which genre it's in. But it takes place on a habitable moon with non-human characters, although they're vaguely humanoid. Initially, they were based off naiads in Greek mythology because they're semi-aquatic and they have an interesting origin related to the water. But I follow 2 characters in particular who are from opposite ends of their society. And they both get into some really interesting situations. Yeah, Timothy is right to call it dark fantasy horror. Yeah, the science fiction side it's very soft science fiction. I've researched as best as I can, but a lot of the physics and the way things work, I wouldn't, subject it to intense scrutiny.
Dark fantasy, horror, science fiction. You're covering a lot of bases there.
Yeah, it's been called a genre mashup by reviewers.
But they seem to like it because your reviews are not suffering for that at all.
Yeah, look, in time I may start getting those 2- and 1-star reviews when I get to a wider pool of reviewers, but the first 30 or so have been relatively kind to me, so I'm very grateful.
That's awesome. How long have you been working on that?
This book, I'd say the past 5 years or so, and then I think around COVID time I was able to really give it a push and then get it to that near complete stage. But I've been thinking about it since probably my college days. I've done a comic as part of my 3rd year in graphic design, and I had very similar characters to the ones that I've designed who were in this short story, and I've just let the world grow since then.
Did you do your cover?
Yes, I did.
That is a really cool cover. The graphic
Oh,
design,
thank
I
you.
thought maybe that was the case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. It's wonderful that I was able to kind of use my day job in this, and also something personal to me. So I'm not just working to a client's brief for a change.
Right. You know exactly what the client wants. Change that.
Yeah.
So did you find it easy to do this cover, or were you picky about what had to be? I mean, were you a perfectionist, or were you let it go?
No, I was able to be very perfectionistic on this one because I had a long time to work on it. But yeah, it took me a while to decide what exactly I wanted on the cover, because I mean there were the environments within the world that I could have drawn, but at the end of the day, it's a very character-driven story, and it's dual POV. So I thought maybe I'd have the one character on book one, and then which is Prisma, and then the second character will appear on the cover of book two. So yeah, that just seemed it was a nice theme running through both books.
Do you have a copy of it with you that you can hold up so people can see the cover?
Yes, I think I've got it on the table here. Yeah, so here it is. So Prisma at the front, she's wearing a mask, and you find out why in the story. There's a whole subclass of characters that wear masks. And then she's also got a trinket that she's holding in her hands, and that is another thing. It's like an Easter egg. You find out more about that as the story progresses. And then I don't know if you can really see the environment on the back cover. I think I'll take the jacket off because then I don't have the text. But yeah, that's one of the environments in the story, Assembly Chambers. So it's a big political hotspot in Far Removed. So you've got like the holographic presentation. Yeah, so that's the hardcover.
What size is that book?
And the typography. It is 6 by 9 inches. So I'd just taken the advice of my typesetter when deciding on that size, and it does kind of show off the illustrations, but it seems I could have gotten away with a smaller book.
No, that's fine. I mean, it looks good. Just it looked very large. 6 by 9 isn't that bad though.
Yeah.
So, how long? I thought it was a little interesting that you said, because so many people say this about their first book, is that it's something that's been kind of filtering in their head for, 5 to 10 to 20 years, and then it takes them, 5 years to actually put it out. And the next question always is, how long until the next one comes out?
Well, thankfully, I drafted book 1 and 2 together. And at some point, I thought that it would just be one really long book. But somewhere in the outlining stage, I just realized that thematically, it didn't really work as a really long book. It felt like there was a particular tone in the first half, and that would work as book 1. And then I could do the second book afterwards. So I've already outlined the second half, and I'm now drafting that, and it seems to be going a lot quicker now that I've had some practice in drafting and writing. So I'm hoping that I can keep whittling down the amount of time it takes for me to write these.
Have at any point during this drafting of book 2, have you thought maybe I should make this a trilogy instead of a duology?
No. It feels fairly complete where it's all heading. There are still going to be, because it's such a big world beyond the 2 characters that I'm writing, I could write other stories set in this world, and maybe that will feature these characters or some side characters. But yeah, I think I've got this kind of planned. But I know there was a discussion on Twitter recently about just plotting and how you don't want to take too firm control over your characters and like push them into a particular like box. And I think there's something to be said for that. But I do kind of like plotting because it's like a roadmap, and then I can deviate from that roadmap if need be, but it gives me that like a safety net, so I don't feel like I'm just in uncharted waters and I don't know how long it's going to take to finish the story. And yeah,
no,
I
that
don't
makes
know.
sense because pure kind of discovery writing is often a lot like how long can you tread water? It's
Yeah,
just kind of flailing around out there in the ocean, hoping
yes.
something comes along to drag you to the next point.
Yeah, I admire anyone who does that, like with no idea of where it's all heading. But I like to vaguely know, where I'm going when I start a story. So then I feel like I've got just something in place at least.
Yeah, awesome. So after this duology is finished, then are you going to stay in the same kind of genre? Or are you going to toy with something else?
I think if I do continue writing anything, it will probably be in the same world, just because a lot of the people who've read this book seem interested in it and they want to see other corners of Niadria, which is the world I've created. And yeah, at the moment, it just feels like something that I could give a bit more attention to, and then at least I'm appealing to people who already kind of like the direction I started out in.
Right. Go ahead, Mike.
So I can't help but my Excel brain. I need to know what percent of this moon is water, what percent is land. I need to know these things about the world.
Yes. Well, I actually answered that a while ago. With Earth, isn't it like 70% water here? Now, I remember with Niagara, I decided, okay, it would be a slightly higher percentage of water there. And the continents on this moon, they're not particularly large. And so you get islands and you get relatively like small land masses, and a lot of them will lie to the south rather than to the north, just because I'm South African and I decided, hey, why don't we make this side, the epicenter? Although, yeah, Upper Deck itself is close to the equator. But yeah, it was interesting making water like quite an important part of their culture. They all of the clans live along coastlines because they don't do very well far inland. So you won't really find any civilizations inland. Everything's along the coast.
So is that where all the bad guys live, is inland?
No, maybe some animals will be there and they may travel inland at times, but they won't actually set up anything there.
So for me, I would find it a challenge because your people are semi-aquatic. Yes.
Yes.
How does
Mm-hmm.
I mean how familiar do you have to be to write that? Because I'm like I would just get stuck in the wait. They can't do that. They can't. They don't probably climb trees. It.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you manage that?
Okay, well, with their physiology, there is a slightly mystical aspect to their origins because, and this is where you kind of have to suspend disbelief in if you're wanting a very like scientific answer. And they don't sexually reproduce, so they come as these small like polyp-shaped embryonic creatures. They wash up on shores where they are like gathered in nurseries and raised, so they're completely aquatic in that stage of life. And then slowly they will they'll develop lungs and they'll be able to leave the water, and then they can largely live on land, although they're still water remains an important thing to them. They need to I'd say like return to the water often, like once a day, or yeah, that's why they would live on the coastlines or where there's a lot of water nearby. And they also they dehydrate rather quickly. But it was fun. Oh yes, I wanted to also explain that they can continue to spend extended amounts of time underwater, but the gills that they have when they are tidelings, which is their young stage, those shrivel up in time. So they do have lungs, but then I suppose like marine mammals such as seals, they would be able to store oxygen in their muscles, which would keep them able to swim for about up to an hour or so without needing to surface for air. So I just those were some of the parameters that I put in place of what they can do and what they can't do.
And this is the kind of detail you get when you stew about something for 5 years before you write it down.
Yes.
Because I could sit in front of a typewriter for 100 years and never come up with that.
I just love I love looking at nature documentaries, and some of the creatures that you can draw inspiration from are just so outlandish. You can't make some of these things up. And I just thought it's so interesting when you look at the concept of evolution, that all life originated from the sea. So I thought why don't we just kind of speed up that process of very simple organisms evolving very rapidly into intelligent life. And the naiads in the story they're very humanoid in appearance, and that it's just their skins may come in a variety of hues that kind of look like marine environments. Some of the corals or the kelps that would have been in the area that they were growing up in, that would reflect in their skin tone. And I also made up that they have tendrils instead of hair. So there's these shafts that are a bit like feathers. They're shorter than a human's hair, a bit stiffer, so they wouldn't get really tangled underwater. Just those little things. It's a lot of fun for me.
Now, we have something evolutionary-wise like that. We said you're kind of amazed at all the different things around the world. We have something like that in the States. We call it Florida Man. It's a completely different evolutionary beast, and it's always doing something stupid, but that doesn't matter.
Okay. All your cryptids. It seems all the cryptids are in the States. It's so interesting.
Florida Man could be a little bit, I guess, couldn't it? Yeah.
I'm sure there are plenty of cryptids all over. Maybe we just the rest of us don't look carefully enough for them.
No, I think it's probably down to LSD and stuff like that. But,
So
okay.
I'm normally the person who brings a topic back to the book.
Yeah, well done.
But I'm not going to this time.
Ooh.
Because I have always had a fascination. I so want to go to South Africa, and I want to be one of those nut job people who goes into the cage, it gets sunk in the ocean, and see the great white sharks swimming around. Are you anywhere near this?
I'm very close to where they do that. That's about 15 kilometers away from where I live. But I've never done that. Yeah. So that should be on my bucket list.
So,
we don't actually...
the bucket list.
I think my bucket list is currently preoccupied with publishing related things. But the great white sharks, that's something to try, I think. Although we don't really have as many as we used to. I mean, False Bay was known for many years as the place where you go to see great whites. But they seem to have moved a bit up the east coast in recent years. So they're more in the heading towards Mossel Bay. And there are a few reasons. Some people think that intensive fishing is upsetting them in this area. We've also had some orcas visiting, and I mean, they've just been on a killing spree with great white sharks. There's just a pair of them that enjoy taking out great white sharks. And so I don't know if that scared the others, and now they've decided to leave.
Well, if you ever come to the States, Co, what we could do is we could do an exchange program. Mike can go out there and get in a shark cage, okay? And you can come to the States and do something I think is even stupider and I saw this the other day. I did not know it existed. It's called a bear cube, right? It's like a big kind of like plexiglass looking cube that people get in, and bears slap it around. I think that's just the dumbest thing ever. But yeah, look it up.
Well,
Bear cube.
whoever came up with that, I mean, that's ingenious. And the fact that they've actually found paying customers, these things never cease to surprise me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
I bet the inventor is a cult classic now because he's probably not living anymore.
Where is this? I'm going to put a link to it here in a minute. I'm trying to figure out where it is. It might not even be in the United States. I hate to say that, but it's a business there, so it's North America somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. Would it be Canadian? They tend to have more sense than Americans.
Yeah, but you never know. Anyway, there's a link to it in the thing, a little Facebook video. But
you can watch after this. After this,
Mhm.
I don't know. I think you can keep listening to it. It's kind of worth the watch.
and that's why we don't get more subscribers.
I'm sorry.
And I think Tim is talking about Canadians being less stupid than Americans.
Well,
he's also Canadian, so you know.
That's not a high bar, though. It's really not.
Does Canada have the equivalent of Florida Man?
What's that?
Does Canada have the equivalent of Florida Man?
Quebec.
Quebec? Okay. So, Co, we talked off air. When is book 2 coming out?
I'm aiming for the end of next year. So probably around November next year. All
so
things going well.
You'll be riding the high of your book making it to the finals of SPFNO next year, and then you'll be releasing book 2. That's very smart.
That's right. It's a good call.
Yeah, so hopefully Lady Luck is kinder to me next year, even though there'll be even more entrants. So we'll see how SPFNO
I don't
works.
know if there will be more entrants. There'll be more SPFNOs. But yeah,
yes.
I don't think EL wants more book. So he wants you to write them faster, I guess.
So EL's trying to get us back on track, I think. He likes to do that.
He's very good at that.
Yes. So there are 2 main characters in your book, correct? Tell us about them and tell us the difference between them.
Okay. Well, the fun thing with the duology is that I purposefully chose 2 characters who were very different, not only in terms of where they come from, but also in personality. So we've got Prisma, who's on the cover, and she is of a subclass where quite a low class in their society, where they have to wear masks all the time. So you never see their faces, although I don't want to add spoilers, but as you can imagine, if we're in her POV at some point, you learn a bit more about her and what she looks like. But she works in the assembly chambers, and she's a projectionist, so she'll go to the various political meetings, and she sets up the presentations, and she's very much in the background. And she's someone who is very quiet, very subdued, very systematic in her approach, and quite an enigma initially. She presents a lot of questions, and it was fun, like slowly unraveling bits about her past and the way she works, and also like bringing her out of her routine and into like this more crazy, chaotic world. And of course, the person to do that is my other protagonist, Oculus, who is he's a minister at the assembly, but he's involved in many things. So he's something of a Renaissance man. He's interested in politics, in the sciences, in like exploration. He's involved in a bit too much. So I'm in both of them to an extent. Prisma has my like introverted side, but then she's a much more like together, organized person, and Oculus has like my very scattered, crazy aspects. But he's, of course, he's more of like a charming extrovert. So he's got a lot more energy than I do. And he doesn't approach Prisma directly. It's done through a mutual friend of theirs. He's got this problem and he needs her particular skill set to help him solve it, because of the many things that he's involved in, he's the founder of a college where he instigates some political unrest. Like, he makes his students question the status quo, and this gets one of the students into trouble with the authorities, and he wants to like help smuggle her out of the city because he's secretly funding a band of rebels and they can't get the student out in the usual way. So this is where Prisma, who's got a knowledge of some of the underground tunnels and things around Apodeka, she's able to help, but she's reluctant. So yeah, that's the two of them. And kind of like, I can't really choose between them, because as you get deep into a character's POV, you come to really appreciate and get really annoyed with both of them at different times.
Right. Like choosing your favorite child.
Yeah, completely.
All right, EL has posted a dozen questions or so.
Let's start here.
Yeah, that's a good place. Can you read them?
Well, that is a good question. Yes. What made you fall in love with your world? I think I've been gushing quite a lot about just the world building and the species and some of the characters. I think it's all of those things coming together. I enjoy writing characters and getting to know them very well and letting them take the lead. But I also really loved the setting. I loved the fact that they weren't human, so that then you can explore all kinds of interesting things, like we were discussing earlier about them being semi-aquatic, or the characters who wear masks all the time. It brings a different perspective that you wouldn't get if you were writing in a more familiar setting.
Do you find you kind of have to constantly remind yourself of all these differences in this world and try to point out something about it every now and then to kind of remind people that they do have these limitations? Or not?
That's this is possibly why I'm quite a slow writer, especially on the first book, where I was introducing so many of these things to people, and you're trying not to information dump. You're trying to just make it like flow naturally into the narrative. And I think in some ways, some readers have found it a little bit disorientating in the first few chapters, because I do leave a lot of things for them to fill in intuitively. I don't put a lot of things explained like outright. And when it came to like writing Prisma, who's wearing a mask a lot of the time, I found I had to limit myself, like, okay, remember, you can't write things like she smiled or no facial expressions. That was a big one. And so I had to really pay attention to body language, rather like if she was shrugging or using with hands or that kind of thing. But it's quite fun, actually, because when you've got those limitations in place, it also helps you develop the character's voice.
Yeah, I have to think that COVID was actually a help in that case, because as we were all wearing masks for a year and a half, you catch yourself doing things. It's like, oh yeah, they can't see that, right? Which I thought was brilliant at work. But apparently my eyes are very expressive, and my boss did say something to me once. It's like, how the hell can you tell? Oh, I can read your eyes. You're obviously a bit annoyed, but so that probably helped a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because it's interesting, I was writing this before COVID, and then I think maybe during COVID, it really helped being able to actually add some lived experience to all of this, like not being able to read people as easily as we normally do, looking for other kind of social cues, and even in terms of like Prisma's story, with her being such an isolated character, I was able to kind of understand her a little bit better because we were all locked down for a bit. And then, just seeing, although she's one of those people I think COVID really well, I think all the extroverts were like climbing up the walls with the limitations, which must have been really hard for people who are used to, being around others and doing many things.
Writers kind of loved it, I think.
Yeah.
Like, yay.
So
yeah, it was getting a bit much towards the end of 2020. Like I was ready to see people again.
So I'm just going to say, when you said that you couldn't do, they smiled, they furrowed their brow. I was like, oh my God, no, never. I couldn't write. But yeah, you're right. That would be a fun challenge to,
That's a challenge, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what else EL has. Man, Mike, I didn't need to show up. We could just had EL.
Yeah, I know.
Is he or she? I don't want to make assumptions with
It's
EL. He. Okay. No, he's doing really well. These are great questions. What terrifies you? Okay, well, that's. I feel like I could tread into like very spoilery territory over here. I think what terrifies me might be. It's not so much isolation and that, but I think it can be like judgment. I'd say like societal judgment. People, misinformation being spread about your character. Cancel culture, all of that stuff. And those themes do come into the story to an extent because it's a socially stratified society, and the way the characters are treated is very much, depends on their station in life. And it's just interesting to see how, because the authorities, it's like a group of monarchs who run Upper Decker and the world at large. And it's just interesting how they can like decide, they can change the course of a person's life in a moment just based on whether they approve of their actions or not. So those things do come in, like a bit of that social anxiety.
Don't ever start a YouTube channel.
I know. Why am I here if I'm afraid of cancel culture?
No, you'll be okay.
It's fun because we have to talk as authors, and then we share opinions, and then just in doing that, you can cause a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I think all the author stuff I've seen on YouTube, it stays pretty close to on topic, right?
Yeah.
People are generally very careful about not wandering into areas where there may be kind of minefields.
Yes.
And it's too bad in a way, but very understandable, right?
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, there are lots of relatively safe things to share, but even just saying like your preferred brand of tea could be a source of like aggravation for someone.
Oh, we just don't drink tea. That stuff's to quote Ted Lasso, it's garbage water. It's having said that, my wife has, after 30-something years, finally got me to drink tea every now and then. And it's not bad if you put enough sugar in it.
Now, I'd like to know with Americans, like, do you have kettles in your home, like to boil hot water?
My wife's British, so absolutely. We not only have a kettle, we have a spare. So
okay,
we always have two because they die, and heaven forbid that she can't have a cup of tea. Yeah, that'd be bad.
That's good.
So I did see. Go ahead.
Generally speaking, Americans generally don't have kettles.
Mm-hmm.
I did see, I forget who, but on Twitter he said, for my British colleagues, how long do you microwave your water when you make tea? just to stir the pot.
Wow, yeah. You're looking to get a beat down.
I like that pun. Just stir the pot.
Yeah. So how do you get your books out? I mean, how are you able to get your book out amongst the reading public over there in Cape Town?
Oh, well, I haven't really reached out to too many local reviewers. South Africa, it's quite interesting. We do have a few big conventions. Like there's something called FanCon, which I think has changed its name in recent years. And that's in once a year in about April. They go to the Cape Town Convention Center, and it's like a very big sci-fi fantasy gaming expo, but it's very broad. So it's for people who like reading, who like gaming, who like anime, manga, yeah, anything. Like it covers all bases. And so quite a lot of people do come because I think it draws people from all over South Africa. But aside from that, we don't really have any smaller, like book specific conventions to go to. I could be wrong. So if there are any other South Africans listening, maybe they could suggest something. But otherwise, I've mostly just been using social media to connect with people who have like the same kind of niche interests that I do, who might be keen on books with lots of world building, books with non-human characters, that kind of thing. So it's been a gradual process of like finding those readers and then getting word of mouth advertising.
Do you see yourself getting a table at this annual con anytime soon?
I think I'd like to when I've got the second book out. So then I've got more to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And I've also considered like opening it up to other authors if they'd like to send any books all the way down here for me to sell on their behalf. I don't think they'd make a huge profit.
What the shipping would be to South Africa.
That's it. Yeah, it would be a lot. That I don't even order huge quantities of books from Ingram Spark, and that I've got my author copies, and beyond that, I don't print very much because the shipping fees do add up. But if you just wanted to see if you could reach the South African audience just out of interest, as opposed to making a huge profit on it, then it would be an option.
The cheapest option for shipping books and educational materials, the first pound, it costs $2.80. That's through USPS Media Mail.
Oh, media mail is only inside the country, though. You can't ship it international. Trust me.
That says send it to South Africa, man.
Oh, really? Well, you can't to Europe at least, because I spend more on shipping than I charge for my books.
Yeah, when I have ordered from Ingram, it works out cheapest to order from the UK, and then they ship it down to me. But it still works out to be around 500 odd rand on top of the cost of the books. So it's a bit, and then there's duty as well when it arrives.
And 500 rand is $27 US. Okay.
Oh, so if you get a table,
that's for how many books?
Okay, yeah, that would be nice. If I'll keep that in mind. Like I said, I don't think that authors sending books all the way here would necessarily get much of a profit in it. But if you'd just like to extend your book's reach all over the world, then it's something that I'd like to do one day.
I think the idea there was to send one book and have a link, right? One book with a QR code.
That's it. That's a good idea.
Book, you know?
Yeah. I know a while ago I saw a post on Twitter, Palmer Pickering, I think she was offering the chance to like get your books for free to Worldcon in Glasgow. And so I took her up on that offer and sent a few copies. So that's exciting to think that I'll have some of my paperbacks and one hardcover over there for that event.
Yep, me too. So
I know that's good.
Things, Mike, what the hell?
You need to be on Twitter.
I am. Obviously, I'm not the Twitter, person that you are, I guess.
You need more
social media maven you.
Yeah, oh God. So Co, are you? I mean, I know I'm stereotyping here, so please tell me I'm wrong. But I always see South Africa as being hot and mostly dry, and you write about a water world. Are you ever going to write anything about a savanna anytime, or over and done with that? I know you're on the coast, but still, tell me how I'm wrong with my stereotyping.
Well, yeah, we've got so many microclimates in South Africa. I am very fortunate that I've been born and raised in like the Cape, which is just it's one of the most biodiverse, beautiful places. With all of the fynbos that we've got growing, it's got quite a Mediterranean climate, which also inspired the world that I've written. Quite dry, but then we've got wet, cold winters, and I think because I do live on the coast, I have an interest in the sea and in marine life, and I mean, just looking at some of the corals. I've never gone scuba diving, but just in the rock pools and things, there's so many different colors and textures and shapes to look at. So I had to incorporate that into my story somehow. But if you go a little bit further along the east coast, it gets really like lush and forested, and that's lovely too, the garden route. So I'm just going to do some like advertising for our tourism industry over here. Up to Durban, very humid, feels a little bit more tropical as you head up that way. Then Johannesburg, less wind, so the weather's a little bit nicer, but that's where you get more of the savanna as inland.
Well, I can tell you from my brief exposure to Pretoria, it was gorgeous. Yeah, we were there January, February, so that would have been what, spring, fall?
No, that would be summer.
Okay, there it is. It was really nice. I mean, there was just these huge like purple kind of flowers everywhere. I forget what they were called, but they were just literally everywhere you looked.
Oh yes, the jacaranda trees.
Yeah,
those are gorgeous.
Really nice.
So EL has a question that I do not understand what he's even asking. So
I know the film Chappie. The director Neil Blomkamp is a South African. That was a story about a robot, and I didn't see that whole one. I think I saw the first half of that film, but I didn't finish it. So I can't really comment on Chappie, but I did like another one of Neil Blomkamp's films, which is District 9. And that was fun. I'm sure that also influenced me to an extent. It's also got that whole social stratification and a bit of body horror and all of those things. But it was amazing to have that like really cinematic soundtrack on a South African film, with this giant UFO over Johannesburg, when we're so used to seeing all these outlandish things in American cities. So I've got quite special memories of that one.
I think from you only making it halfway through a film, you probably said about as much as you need to say about your feelings towards Chappie, I guess.
I think if I remember correctly, I was like at someone's house when it was on, so didn't see it all.
Oh, that was smooth. way to walk that center line. All right, Mike, do we have a silly question? Because I think one of her characters would do well in Mike World.
Sure. Let me roll the die. 3. Okay. This one we haven't asked before.
Ooh.
Have you had any dreams involving your characters? Don't know how that made this list.
I need to think about that. I don't think I've had I don't have many proper dreams that you have those ideas that come to you about the plot and the characters as you're going to bed. But when I actually do dream, it's usually like random things completely unrelated to my book. So I have to disappoint. Can't think of any examples.
That's probably just as well, because if you had a dream like that, you would remember that you had a dream about something in your book, and then you wouldn't remember what it was, but you would be absolutely certain that if you had remembered it, it would just be world changing for that book and just absolutely rocket it to the top of the charts, and then you'd be just depressed. So it's good on you for not dreaming about your book. Mike, give her character a potion and chuck him into Wally World there.
Okay, hold on a second.
I know, it's inconceivable. Have you ever seen Princess Bride, Kel?
I haven't. It's something I'd like to see.
When you watch it, and
I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah, there's a character named Vizzini. Remember Mike's face right here, and then watch the movie, and then you'll laugh. You'll just laugh out loud for no reason, and people around you will wonder why.
Okay, so you get to pick one of your main characters, and they are transported to another world. It's more like kind of like a gladiatorial arena, but the rules of your world still hold sway. And then we'll go from there. So we roll a million dice.
We've done this 5 times, and it really hasn't worked out yet.
So your character, which one are you choosing, by the way?
Let's go with Prisma.
Okay, she is transported to an underground cavern illuminated by glowing crystals.
Okay, this is her jam. This is right up her alley.
Okay, and she's given a green fizzy potion that she doesn't know what it does. Now you get a choice here because they're going to face off against another creature. So you can take a common everyday item and you'll face a common animal, or you can take a weapon, an actual weapon, and you'll face off against a mythological creature. So which does she want?
Let's see. Facing off against the common animal, I think.
Okay. So she has got number 10. She has got an empty barrel that is 4 feet tall. Good luck with that. She could have got a bastard sword had she chosen but now she has to face off against an ostrich.
Okay, not too bad.
She has a mystical fizzy potion that she doesn't know what it does. She has a barrel in a cave with illuminating crystals, and there's an ostrich that's out looking for her to do damage. What happens?
Let's see. I think she could roll that barrel towards the ostrich, hopefully get it tripping up over its own feet, and then she'd make a run for it down that tunnel. Yeah, see if she can escape.
So we're going to give the ostrich a dexterity check or something like
that? You have to, I guess.
I mean, I would normally say the ostrich could just jump the barrel, but they're in a cave. So, that really does limit mobility. So actually, I think the barrel would be handy in this case. So, okay, there we go. And no one has ever used the potion. This one was an elixir of youth.
I think you need to make this place harder, man.
Well,
you need to make this more difficult.
Only does so much.
All right.
But thank you. That was fun. It's always I'm always interested to see what happens when you put people's characters in a new situation and you learn about the character that way. Yeah. Now if you told me that Prisma had chose the bastard sword, I'd be like, wait a second. I've heard nothing that would make me.
Sounds like a Monty Python character. Okay, so how long has your first book been out? We're just going to recap a couple things.
It has been out since the 5th of September last year.
Okay.
So it's not yet a year old.
Hold it up and tell people to buy it. We found this works great.
Buy this book.
Yeah. Yes. Go on. We have the link up there earlier in the chat. If you got here late, you can find the link to Co's book on Amazon. And the next one we're looking at late next year.
Yes, that's the plan.
Duology, so that'll be both books. That'll be great.
So book 1 is already here, and then book 2 is on the way.
Do you have any more novellas planned that will relate to this story?
Yes. So the first novella that I released it offered a bit of insight into Oclus's backstory, because he's from a fairly wealthy clan, and it's a little bit further north in a colder part of the moon. So it was just interesting adding a bit of like background in how naiads come about, how the young are raised, all of that. But also we get to meet his mentor, who's mentioned in Far Removed, but the novella was actually told through the mentor's point of view. And with Prisma, I'm also hoping to do a novella about her backstory. But again, I may just play around with point of view, or introduce some other characters who were from her clan of origin. And it's fun. You don't need to read the novellas to understand the characters, but it does just open up the world a little bit more. And since the characters who are, all the ones who come to Apodeca, which is the location of the duology, they all start life somewhere else. So at least these novellas allow you to see those other parts of the moon.
Nice.
And how does someone get their hands on a novella?
That is on Kindle Unlimited. So I'm hoping to release a paperback at some point in the next month, possibly. But the ebook is on Amazon.
Okay. Awesome. Mike, you got anything else?
I do not, except I do love worlds that people spend a lot of time with the world building. So I am definitely going to start listening to this book, because this is kind of awesome, and it's nothing I would have ever come up with. So
no, I know, right? And there is an audiobook, you said?
Yes, there is. Yeah. So we discussed that in the interview with Matt from Beard of Darkness, and I actually had both my narrators on that interview, which was a lot of fun. It was a really awesome process, like casting and putting that whole project together. So the audiobook is something that I'm very glad that I was able to afford and put out there.
Yeah, great. All right, there it is, folks. You can get the paperback, the the audiobook, ebook, hardcover, audio, blah, blah, blah. Sorry. All right.
Okay. Well, Co, thank you for lowering your standards and coming onto our show.
That's right. Yeah, you can. There's others out there where you can raise them back up again.
I am going to take a page out of Matt, the Beard of Darkness book, and I'm going to ask you, who else is out there that we should interview?
Oh, I think, have you tried? I think I've seen E.L. Lyons on your channel already. So is Natalie Kelder. She was in SPFNO last year, and I think in this year as well.
Yep, next month we should be talking.
And A.J. Calvin, who wrote the Cain Legacy and the Relics of War series. She's a prolific writer, very supportive of the community. She also does reviews for Fanpire Addict. So definitely someone to keep an eye out for. And then another person is Joel Flanagan Graneman, who he writes the Servants of the Moon and Sun books, which are like epic fantasy about fairies, but they're warrior type fairies. So it's not the kind of romantasy fae stories. And he's also done some really complex world building there.
Awesome. If you can send me at least their names so I can find them, I
Yeah.
would love to add them to the list. Like I said, Natalie should
Sure.
be next month, but the rest of
Okay.
them I did not have on my list. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, I'll send the links.
All right. Well, thank you, Co,
Okay.
and enjoy the rest of winter, I guess.
Yeah, and you enjoy your summer. Hope it's not too hot where you are.
Not today.
No.
That's good.
Okay. Are we timed to wave awkwardly?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Thanks again, Co.